Good evening and welcome back to the Pastor Study with Pastor Dan Wessel. I was doing my Bible study this morning and ran across a passage that I've read many, many times. I'm very familiar with it. I'm sure you will be too once I introduce it. But the Holy Spirit pricked me to look at it from a different perspective, and that's what I'd like to share with you this evening. The passage is from the book of Hebrews, the last chapter, chapter 13, where the writer of Hebrews is kind of giving a laundry list of characteristics and aspects of life that ought to be a part of a believer's life. And in verse 15, he says this: Through Jesus, then, let us continually offer up a sacrifice of praise to God. That is the fruit of lips that acknowledge his name. And do not neglect to do good to others and to share what you have with them, for such sacrifices are pleasing to God. Now, I have often opened services with this passage. And I'll share that, if you're coming this morning and the weight of the world is on your shoulders and you're struggling with a problem in life, maybe it's financial, maybe it's a health issue, maybe it's a marital issue, whatever that may be, give it to God as we worship and see what he'll do with it. And that's absolutely biblical. Jesus says we're to bring our burdens to him because his yoke is easy and light. But I think the writer of Hebrews is going a bit further here because of his word sacrifice. Sacrifice means I'm giving something I don't have to give. That means I'm at a place where I am in the wilderness of my spirit. I've got nothing left to give. Maybe I'm in the place where I'm having pity parties and temper tantrums. And people come to me, I'm thinking, go away, leave me alone with my pity party. I don't want to hear what you have to say. I mean, maybe you haven't been there, but I have a time or two. But in any event, the writer's talking about sacrifice. Now, let me put that a little bit in perspective, okay? Presume I make $10,000 a month. Nice salary, $120,000 a year. Most of us would be appreciative of that. So I come to church and I drop an $800 check in the offering plate. Now, as a pastor, I love seeing those come across the offering plate. I can guarantee you my treasurer does as well. But let's put that in perspective. As believers, we're called to tithe. That's 10%, the first 10% of what we make. That would be $1,000. $800 doesn't get you there. That $800, while it's a nice check, is not a sacrifice. God has called for us to give back into the kingdom in the first 10% of our income. That would have been $1,000 check. Now, had I written an $8,000 check out of a $10,000 salary, and my budget, my needs are at least $6,000 a month, then that becomes sacrifice. That is, I'm giving what I don't have to give and trusting God to meet my needs. I know many of the men and women that I work with in East Africa will do just that very thing. They'll give their last nickel or their last, their whatever their currency is in their country to fulfill a mission God's called them to, trusting God to do the rest. I've seen them leave home to go on campaigns, evangelistic campaigns away from home, nights away from home, having just enough money to get there and trusting God to give them money to get home. And I've watched it happen. So when God comes to us and says when the writer of Hebrews comes and says that there are times we're going to have to offer up a sacrifice of praise, this is what he's talking about. We don't have it to give, but we do it anyway. And then he tells us how we do it. He says, through Jesus, can't do it on our own. Our flesh can't do it. We can't gin it up. We got nothing left to give. But he says, those who through Jesus, and for those who call upon his name, those who know his name, those who are part of his kingdom, those who have been filled with his spirit, there's if you want to call it a reserve place, I've driven vehicles that have reserve in the gas tank. I got a little bit left. Don't know it's there, but it's there. There's a place within us that when we come to offer it to the Father, even if we don't think we have it to give anymore, the tears are pouring down our face because life is dumped on us and the world can't get any worse. And we find something there to give him. That's the sacrifice of praise. when we just come before him not to get anything else out of him, not to make ourselves look better, but just in our ugliness and our falling apartness, we come and say, I worship you and I praise you for who you are. You're Jehovah Jireh, my provider. Even though I'm not seeing it yet, you're Jehovah Jireh, my provider. You're Jehovah Rapha, my healer. I haven't been healed yet, but you're still Jehovah Rapha, my healer, nonetheless. And we work our way through that. And then there's another piece of this passage as well. And because it's in the same paragraph and it shares the same verbiage, it's obvious that the writer of Hebrews meant for them to go together. And that is the sacrifice of what we have, that is giving to others. Now, many of us have taken a couple cans to the food bank, or they come collecting and we look through our pantry to see what has dust on it that we haven't eaten recently and probably aren't going to. We pull that out and clean out the pantry at the same time and feel good about it. That's not a sacrifice. We're moving into an unprecedented time in our culture in America. Because of the partial shutdown of the government, the statement has been made that at best, 50% of SNAP benefits, that is food stamp benefits, will be issued in the month of November. And we don't even know if that happens, when it's going to happen. Normally at the beginning of the month, some people may not even see that till the end of the month, and they're going to struggle. I'm already hearing stories of people crashing Walmart and grocery stores just to steal food to put on their shelves. I personally know people that are now beginning to struggle already, and we're just 4 or 5 days into the month. It's very possible that God will call upon the church to fulfill this passage. Maybe you know somebody, maybe somebody in your church, maybe somebody next door. Now, when does it become a sacrifice? Well, if my pantry's overflowing, my freezer's full, and I'm going to get paid the end of this week, and I give somebody a grocery bag of groceries. That's a wonderful thing. I may help them out. Not a bad thing. Don't misunderstand me, but that's not sacrifice. But if I get paid once a month, as I have occasionally in my past careers, and we're only the second week of the month, and I know that I'm not going to have money to go back to the grocery store, and I only bought food for the month, and I dip in that to give to somebody else, now I'm sacrificing. Because I don't know where the rest of my month's groceries are going to come from. I'm trusting God. Now we're in the sacrificial realm. Think about it. What did Jesus tell us to do in the Lord's Prayer? He said, pray today for today's daily bread. I've worked with men and women in East Africa, and I've watched them with awe as they have literally lived that verse. They've trusted God each and every day for the food for that day. There's been times that I felt moved to share finances over and above commitments each month to one person or another. And more than once, I've gotten the word back, thank you. This is today's bread. And I've been very, very humbled that God would use me in that way to meet their need. So as we're going through this time of difficulty in our country, ask the Holy Spirit if there's somebody that you can be a part of their supply. Maybe it will be a sacrifice for you. Let me suggest that you make that physical sacrifice. Maybe this is a good time for a praise sacrifice as well. Just trusting God that He'll meet your need as you go through the month. You know, after all, we do serve the God who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. He has no lack in His treasury, and have yet to see His inability to write a check because He didn't have the funding. I think as we learn to sacrifice, we'll see a different level of walk in our lives with the Father through the Holy Spirit and see some phenomenal things begin to happen. I look forward to seeing you next week back in the Pastor Study.